We're with John Kelly. John is a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona, and he's agreed to answer some online questions related to car accidents. With that said, John, I'm going to go ahead and get into the first question, and we'll go from there. First question was from Candice. Candice says, I was in a minor accident with my 11-year-old son 3 weeks ago. There was slight damage to the front right fender, but nothing major. It was a bit scary for both of us, but it really didn't seem like a big deal. The insurance company from the woman that hit us is paying for the repairs, and the car insurance provided me with the settlement documentation to sign. Basically, she got a settlement document to sign. And the issue is my son is now complaining of his neck hurting. What are my options?
Okay, for Candice, having her child in the vehicle, sounds like the child's injured now, which that's something that insurance companies, what they'll typically do in these kind of cases is they're going to reach out right away and see if they can settle the case. If she has a child that's complaining of an injury, she needs to get that child in to be evaluated first to make sure that the child doesn't have any long-term consequences from this injury. What can happen is that the insurance company will send an individual who's been in a wreck the documentation and a check and say, hey, sign off on this. You'll get this nice check. We'll move on from it. The problem with that is later on, if there's injuries that were not diagnosed, there's no recovery for that. So the good news is for Candice, it sounds like the adverse insurance company, the person that hit her, has accepted liability. That's the first step. So they've taken responsibility for this accident. It's up to her now to show the insurance company what her injuries are and her child's injuries are. And they won't take her word for it. She can't just call them up and say, hey, you know, my child has some neck pain. Can you compensate him for that? She's going to have to provide documentation. So when I get a client, I make sure that we have everything that is complained of from the client that's got to be evaluated by a doctor and actually diagnosed as that. And we use those bills and records of those visits to make a demand later on. Typically, we wait at least a couple of months after the accident to make sure that there's no lingering effects that we're not taking care of. So she probably should at least consult with an attorney and definitely needs to get medical attention for her daughter.
Okay. Next question we had was from Jose. Jose says, I'm a construction manager, and while I was headed to work, I was hit by a guy exiting the freeway. The police came and cited the driver for failure to maintain control of his vehicle. My truck was totaled, and I had to go to the hospital. The injuries were not major, but I missed 3 days of work, and I'm having back pains. The insurance company is wanting me to sign a release document and offering me a settlement. If I counter offer, will I have to get an attorney?
For Jose, he does not need to get an attorney to negotiate with the insurance company. He can go all the way through all his settlement negotiations. He can go all the way up to trial. He can even conduct a trial on his own if he really wanted to. It's not an advisable thing for him to do. And honestly, for someone to settle a case without an attorney in a case where they've gone to the hospital and incurred medical expenses, it can be a little concerning, because what a lot of people don't understand is hospital bills in Arizona, insurance, the hospitals are allowed to do what we call balance bills. So although their health insurance may have paid some of that bill, there's still going to be an outstanding amount that they didn't get paid. The hospitals will then come back to the person who got the settlement and say, I want the rest of the money from the settlement. So that's a lien against the case. So he's got to be certain that he has enough money to pay off all those liens too. Most personal injury attorneys, what they'll do is they'll actually negotiate those liens, make sure they're valid liens, often get major reductions in those amounts to make sure that the client is getting money in their pocket for pain and suffering. The other issue is he may have other avenues of insurance or other avenues of recovery that he's not aware of. May look like a good deal, but anytime, especially with hospital bills, they tend to have big numbers as far as how much it costs for that treatment. Clients don't usually understand what their case is worth when there's serious injuries, and there's the settlements can be multiples when the hospital bills get high.
Okay. Can you turn down your audio a little bit? I'm getting sorry whenever I'm talking.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. The next question was from Jeff. Jeff asked, "How do I know how much the car insurance?" Oh, this is pretty simple, I guess. But how do I know how much the car insurance company should pay me for my car accident?
Yeah, there's it sounds simple, but it isn't a simple thing. And the insurance companies spend thousands of dollars on this. They have actually computer programs that have algorithms that try to determine what kind of offers they should make for settlements. A lot of it's dependent on what the medical expenses are. If there's, you know, a minor injury that's just typically, you know, they consider minor injuries anything that's not a broken bone, anything that's, you know, no major hospital bills. It's difficult to get 3 times your medical expenses in that kind of case. Sometimes you can, more likely 2 times. But once there's, you know, serious injuries that require medical attention that goes a little bit further, it becomes kind of a situation where it's hard to determine. One of the other things that he has to consider is, you know, how much of this is going to be included for pain and suffering, for lost wages, any other avenues of recovery. What are the limits for the insurance to provide? Sometimes he's bumping up on a limit issue. He may have $10,000 worth of hospital bills, but the adverse party only had $15,000 worth of coverage. So does he go to his own insurance company if they have coverage? So when trying to find out what your settlement is worth, sometimes there's settlement calculators you find online. I don't find those to be very reliable. What I do is I look at prior cases that have similar injuries, and I have a way of ordering those through Arizona to look at what other cases have settled for or have resulted at trial. So those can sometimes be helpful to look at those. And the thing about injuries is everyone's injury is a little bit different. So for me to tell people just based on what the accident sounds like initially is not something that anyone should be doing.
Okay, and this is the final question. This is from Tommy. Tommy asked, "I was recently T-boned by a driver and have significant medical bills. I've been provided a large offer by the insurance company, and I think it should cover everything. I realize I might be able to get more money, but I really need the cash now to pay my bills. How can I get more money without having to wait for a lawsuit, etc.?"
Okay, so getting more money, it's kind of a conflicting statement. He said that it seems like a good offer, but he wants more money. I don't know if what exactly his situation is. I can tell you this: he doesn't have to wait long. Even if he's contacting an attorney to evaluate his case, look at the offer that's on the table. It doesn't take more than a couple of days for an attorney to evaluate a case, especially if he has all his documentation in line. If I have the medical records, if I have the police report, if I can look at the settlement offer, usually I can see, you know, where they're at and give them some advice about moving forward. There are times that an attorney will be helpful in situations like that. There's times that they wouldn't. If they have a great offer on the table, it's paying their medical expenses, paying all their other bills, and is getting them money for their pain and suffering, I'm not afraid to tell them, look, you know, that looks like a reasonable offer. You know, paying an attorney a fee is not worth it. But there are some creative ways to usually get quite a bit more out of a case if a lawyer looks down and really, you know, takes the time to evaluate the case and say, we can do these things moving forward, and I think we can get you a good result, a better result, and maybe very quickly, you know. And we know that people have, you know, problems with their bills in these kind of accidents because they just start piling up. And there's that temptation to settle your case right away, but it's not advisable without talking to a lawyer first.
Okay, excellent. Well, if you have any other questions for John, all you need to do, he's agreed to answer them online. All you have to do is just post them into the comment section below the video, and he's agreed to get it back to you. Thanks for your time, John.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm always available to answer any questions, so please feel free to reach out to me.